So I'm going to go ahead and open a new Windows Form app. I'm just going to call it Vet Class Example. Yep. So like I was saying, I'm going to create this. It's going to be like the shopping one that we have on our labs, Lab 2. I'm not going to update or delete at this moment. I might do that tomorrow just to add a little bit more into it. But for now, I'm just going to kind of set up a basic search for some things for a customer and a pet. And then maybe we'll do an update and delete tomorrow as a little bit more of a code along, as more of a refresher, and that way I don't eat up all your lab time. So first thing I'm going to do is I got my project created. I'm going to go in here and add a class to it. And this class I'm just going to call customer.cs lowercase. I'm going to add that. So you can see my class got created. It shows that eternal class customer. First thing we always want to do is change that to public so we can use it throughout our application. And so my customer, you got to think of what all can I hold in my customer. Technically, a database would be a table. We could go look at a table and figure out what fields we need since we don't really have one. So I just created a few things. I'm going to do like a first name, last name, phone number, address, city, zip code, and pet name. Yep.
What did you name the class?
My class is called customer. So I'm going to set up my instance fields. It's going to be private string first name, private string last name, private string, oh, I guess I could have added email. I didn't even think about that. Phone number. Maybe I will add it. Private. And why are we calling these private?
So no one accesses other classes.
Yep, we just want it to be used in this class only. I think I'll add email address. No, I'm not, because then I'll have to change a lot of my code that I already somewhat set up. Nah, who cares? Let's do it. Private string email. E-M-A-I-L. Private string city. Private string zip code, and private string pet name. Bless you.
Name's someone open.
So now that we got that coded, I am going to create my constructor. The constructor allows us to create our objects and hold all of our data in it. We always get that free one, the free public customer. I hate that it does that, and it's already getting ready to set up what I want. So we get that one there for free. You can always code it out. You should kind of get in the habit of coding it out. We're going to overload our constructor with all these fields we just created. And IntelliSense, being nice that it is, fills it all out for us. So you tab over it, save a few minutes. And now we can do our getters and setters. And right now I'm just doing gets because I'm not going to change any data until we do it tomorrow when we do an actual update. And we can update, if a person moves, we can update their address or their phone number. If they change their phone number or something like that changes, we can always do that. Yeah.
Sort of the abundance.
Is that just for reference?
That's a default one that's always there in the background running. As you code, most of the time you should go ahead and code it out. You don't necessarily need to because it's running back there, but something to get in kind of a good habit to do is to code it. So it's just the default. By us putting all these strings in here, we're doing what to the constructor? We're overloading the constructor because the default has no parameters and we're putting parameters in it, so we're overloading it now. So got that done. We'll start doing the getters and setters, and there's a couple different ways we can do this. I'll show you a different way on the next class I'm going to create. I'm going to create 2 classes, so this next class I'll show you a different way. So these are our accessors and mutators. Accessor is the gets that get this information and put it to the screen. The mutators are the sets that allow us to change the data. We'll work with that tomorrow. And that way, like I said, I don't eat up all your lab time today. So you can make these methods, and on this class I will make the methods. So we're going to do get first name. And since we're not doing any sets, I can just go ahead and do it like that. And we'll do that for all of our fields: public, string, get last name, and the IntelliSense should be pretty good to fill it out for us.
Yo, it's all over.
Get phone number. Oops.
Oh my god.
Oops. Get address. Get email address. And as you do more and more with this, creating these getters and setters, these accessors and mutators will just become second nature. You'll be doing them so often. So what I need: city, get city.
Oh.
Get zip code.
Zombie Phoenix. Oh, how does that work?
And finally get pet name. So there's our getters, or our accessors, for our customers object that we're going to end up using in our form. A lot of times you'll have a database set up and you'll get a lot of this information from your database, so you know what you're going to try and save to your database or pull from your database. Since we're not really using a database now, we're just kind of creating all this on the fly. So everybody good with that class? Scroll down.
Something is just changed. It's not a very infinite graph.
Instance fields are fields. Our default constructor, the freebie that it gives us that we're not going to use here. Yeah, Paul?
How come we don't just overload default constructor? Like why?
Because you may need it just like that at some point or another, and then you just have to recode it anyhow. So seeing as it's there, we're just overloading the default. our overloaded constructor, and these are accessors, properties, or get methods. So everybody good with that? All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another class. So go back to our vet class example over in the Solution Explorer, right click on that. We'll add a class. And this class I'm going to call, I'm just going to call it animal. .cs. We'll add that. Again, it gives us our class. It gets set up with that internal class animal. We want to change that to public. And then for this, I'm just going to do like a name for the pet, a type, a breed, color, sex, age, and an owner. Everything's going to be a string except for the age. I call that an int. So I'll do pub or private, sorry. String underscore name. Private string underscore type. Private string underscore breed. Underscore. Guess I could have called it gender instead of sex, but oh well. Color. Private. String. I will put gender here. GENDER. Int age. And private string underscore owner. So again, here's our instance fields. Or just fields. And again, we're going to overload our constructor. I'll just create the default one. Oh, I put it outside my proper parenthesis here, so let me, there we go. I don't need the semicolon there. Get in the habit of putting a semicolon behind everything as you're coding this out because of it. Each line ends with a semicolon, it just becomes habit. So we'll do public animal. This should populate most of it for us, maybe not. So we'll do string name, string type, string breed, string color, string gender, int age, string owner, that was weird how I did it, but it's done.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, do the form.
Yeah. Usually it does. That's why I was surprised mine did.
Thing like that?
Yeah. That's how it did on the first one that we did. And that's why I was kind of surprised it didn't do it on this one. But so I said it's nice. It knows by putting these instant fields in, pretty much knows what you've got to get in your constructor to pull back to populate them. So it makes it pretty easy for IntelliSense to know what should be coming next. So again, then we're going to do our getters and setters down here, accessors and mutators. I'm going to do them a little bit different this time. I'm going to do a public string name and then do a get return name like that. And you can use however you're comfortable with. I just thought I'd show two different types of ways that we can do it like this. Breed. Clean my code up here a little bit. I don't like all the big spaces. Color. It's got to be capital letter to start with since we're using Pascal casing there. Public string gender. Public int. Age. And it's nice that IntelliSense does a lot of this for you, but like I said, you've got to know why it's doing that, why we're coding this stuff out. These are all gets just because we're going to be returning this data to the screen, and that's all we're going to do with it today. Tomorrow we'll add some sets so we can go in and do an update and change some of the data for either the owner and or the pets themselves. So that's all we should need for this. We'll set up our form. The form's going to take a little bit of time to set up just because of all these fields we have on them. We'll set up the form and then we'll go take a quick break and then we'll come back and start coding this form out. So we'll go to our form design. Everybody good with this part here? IntelliSense should code most of that out for you, but just know why we're doing it. And so what we're doing here is these are fields we know we're going to use for the most part: our name of the pet, the type, the breed, the color, the gender, the age. These instance fields are always declared with that underscore in front of them, so you know it's an instance field. We mark them private because we only want them used in this class. We don't want them used in any of the other code. Our default constructor is just this public animal. The class name is always this, or our constructor name is always the same as our class name. And a lot of times in IntelliSense or Visual Studio Code or most of your other editors that you use, if you click on one of the objects or the class, it'll highlight them all, or the name, how they refer to each other. So you can see all my animals that are lit up in green. And then we got our overload constructor here called animal. We're putting all of our data inside there that we want to use for our animal object. And here we have our parameter string name. We created this underscore name to hold the value of this parameter that's going to get passed in. So eventually, once we use this constructor, we make a list and use this constructor. The names that we enter will get stored in the name parameter, get passed in, and then stored in the underscores values. So these instant fields will end up holding the values of our animals that we pass through. The public string name, type, breed, all this down here, these gets, get that value from the return it and return it to the screen so we can use it later. So that's what this whole thing is doing here, is just setting up data for us to populate and hold it and return it to the screen as needed. So let's go to our form and we'll start setting that up. So first thing we're going to have is 2 text boxes. We're going to call it first name, last name. Couple labels to go with those. Actually, I will do another label above it. So label 1, I'm just going to call it first name. I have it show first name. My label, I'll call it LBL, F name text. Label 2. Call it LBL, L name, text.
What did you name that word? LBL name?
LBL, F name and LBL, L name for first name and last name, just to save some typing. We got first name and a last name there. My label 3. Call it customer information. LBL cust info text. So anytime you can shorten them up like that for the LBL instead of customer info, you can shorten it however you want as long as it kind of makes sense. I just call mine cust info. Ryan, turn the video game off and either work on your lab or code along. So then, now that we got our 2 fields, I'll add a button to it.
What did you add to the text boxes?
Oh yeah, I haven't added it yet, so let's do that. So I'll call it TXT first name and TXT last name. And then our button, we'll call it BTN cust search. Button 1, we'll just call it customer search. Ryan, I'm going to tell you one more time, turn off the video game and either do your labs or code along. So now that we got those done, and you could use a group box to group all these together. And we'll get into some of that stuff in Chapter 10, using more of those controls. We'll use check boxes and radial buttons and stuff like that in Chapter 10 to really fancy them up. There's a lot of stuff we can do here to make it more lifelike, but for the example of our code along.
Did you add a visible label somewhere?
Do what?
Did you add like a visible label somewhere for the answer?
Nope, we're going to put text boxes down here to hold that data that's going to come back. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 text boxes.
What do you want me to do when you're done with chapter 12?
Chapter 12, Part 2 labs open. You can start on that. So we need 6 of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're gonna just put our fields in here that we had from our customer class. So we'll do like, we'll start it with the pet name and then just go down the list. We're going to skip first name and last name since we're entering that in the text box up top to search for them. So we'll do label, we'll call it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm just going to call label 1 pet name. Pet name text. Label 2 will be address. Label 3, I guess technically we could put city under label 3. We can do city, zip, and then we'll do our address, city, zip, phone, and then email address at the end there. So it doesn't matter how you label these out or how you line them up. We're just going to pull this data back, and it's kind of nice to have it in some kind of order, understandable order. So we'll do address, we'll do city, level 4 will be zip code, since we figure most people are going to be in our state. That's going to come to our veterinarian clinic. Zip. Zip code. Do a phone number. Labels 5, phone number. See how nice these look when you actually put a name in the label instead of just leaving it label 1 through 6. And this will be our email. And if we want, we can put an update button under that, and that's what we'll work on tomorrow. So we just go ahead and put the button under there now. I'll just call it update customer. Update customer. So, like I said, if you looked at the store demo or store lab we had for chapter 12 part 1 lab 2, I think they used some group boxes or something like that to kind of keep the update and delete stuff a little bit separate, but like I said, I'm not too worried about all that right now. So now we're going to do our pet part of it over here. We'll do another text box. And then we'll put a label. I put 2 labels there. So label 1. Let's try to line it up. So label 1 we'll just call pet name. I might throw a error pet name. I'll put S for the search text, just so I think if you just put pet name, it might throw an error because we're already using label pet name. Pet name, label 2, I'm just gonna say pet information. We'll put a search button under that. We'll call it pet search. And then we're going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 text boxes again underneath there. Like I said, setting this up is going to take a little bit, but as soon as we're done with this, we'll take a break and then we'll start coding the all the button clicks, events, and all that for us. So that. So again, for our labels, we still need to do those yet, so maybe we'll do that when we get back. So put labels over here. Label 1 will be owner name. Put these down here. So then we'll do, instead of owner name for that second one, we'll call it type. And then breed. Then color. Gender. And then finally age. Because I was thinking about this last night, we could put like checks boxes or something or notes for if they're up to date on their shots or their vaccinations, and there's all other kind of things we could have set up. And once we start learning how to use multiple forms, you could almost do one with just the customer search that brings up the customer information. You could probably click on another button for pet info and then bring up another window with just the pet information name in it and have all that in there and done, ready to go. But so we'll add one button under here. We'll call it pet update. Update pet. Now that we have all that lined up and done, I think the only things left is we got to name some of these text boxes, and then after that we'll go ahead and take a break. So the text box up there, we'll call it TXT search pet. And the nice thing is there's only one thing we have to change on these, and that's the actual name. Name, text 2 is cust address, text 3 is city, text 4 is zip code, text 5 is phone number, and text 6 is email. So then we'll go over to the other one. Owner name. Type, breed,
I saw your cousin on TV this morning. Oh, really? Yeah. He was on, I said that he was talking to a group of people.
yeah,
Spelling it wrong, I said to my husband, I said, students.
text gender,
Because he took off.
and finally text age.
What channel?
CBS or KOB or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
And start coding the button clicks out now. So we'll go ahead and start with the customer search part of it.
You're doing great, Mr. Dude.
Thank you, sir. Let me get my... So we'll start out with our customers. We got to double click on your customer search to wire up the event. And like we've been doing in all these, we need a list. So we're going to start by creating a list. What's the keyword we start with? List. Yep. Angle bracket. What goes inside the angle bracket? Class name that we're going to use. Yes. Good. 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 Good.
Does it have to be a class or can it be like a string?
We want to use the class because that's what we're trying to reference here is that class.
If we were trying to do that, could we use a string?
Yeah, if we're not using a class, you can call it a string, you can call it an int, whatever you want your list to be at that point. So I'm going to call it customer list, new list of customers. I'm going to get rid of my semicolon for this moment. And then what's the keyword we use to create new objects in a list? New, yep. So that new instantiates our customer object that we created in our class. So if we look back at our class, We have our customer constructor here. That's what we're going to use to build this object to store this data or to bring it back. So I'll go back to my code. So we're going to do new. Our constructor's customer. And then we need our parentheses. Let's see, 1 of 2. So you can see it's saying we have 2 customer constructors created. We created that default one that's sitting there. And if you do the down arrow, it'll show you our overloaded one. It's nice that it shows it because then you can see exactly what we need to put in this customer object for our list. So the first thing it says is we need a first name that's a string. How would we do that? Double quotes. Quote, put a customer name in there. You can put whatever name you want. I'm putting my own. And as we add these parameters or arguments, these are technically arguments because we're passing them into our constructor. You can see again, it says the next thing we need is a string of a last name. So put a last name in there. You can use whatever you want. These all have to be separated by commas. Since they're strings, they all have to have quotation marks around them. A string of a phone number. A string of an address. And you can call it whatever you want. If you don't want to do a lot of typing, just whatever you want. String of a city, or no, actually we changed it, didn't we? String of an email address at this point. Now we need a string of a city. And the way we have these set up in our constructor in our class, we have to enter them in the exact same way. If we don't, let me show you. So the next thing it's expecting is a city. So if I do my zip code first, you can see my customer over here on the left. My object is already mad because I am not following the given parameter path. So you can see it's saying I'm not putting it in properly. String, 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 that. So I got to go back and fix it. Let me keep putting in the rest of my details. So I got zip, a city, and then what do I have? A pet name. Walter is my dog's name. Usually it shouldn't be happy if you don't put your parameters in properly. I'm surprised it's actually taking this. So
Wait,
let's.
you live in Evansville?
Yep.
I do too.
Illinois?
Yeah.
Do you? Yeah, I live in
Yeah,
Edwardsville.
I live in Willow Creek.
Where at?
Willow Creek next to Goshen.
I live off Goshen and Vicksburg Commons.
Ooh.
So yeah, pretty close then, huh?
You know what like Governor's Way is?
Yep.
It's like the subdivision right next to it. That's my parents' house.
Right before it or across from it?
Okay. On District Drive.
Yep.
And you're going like subdivision Governor's Way.
So I'm surprised it's allowing me to pass this in like this. City, zip code, pet name. Usually you have to follow the naming convention. So let's see what happens. We'll put another customer in. I put like 5 customers in just to give me a lot of stuff to search for. So we'll go ahead and code this out. Oh, I forgot my email address. Let's try it now and see what happens if we keep messing this up. And you can see it's gonna pull our stuff back. It's allowing us to put it in, but as we pull it back through, I don't think it's gonna match up right because it's looking for a certain values in certain areas, but we'll keep doing this. I'll do the rest of them properly, and then we'll see how these print. Address, email address. So we got 2 more left. I'm just going to copy and paste those in there real quick. I need to add a couple things, but address will go. So on the first one and second one, we did not follow our parameter pattern that we have set up in our customer class. We'll see what that does when we print it out to the screen. So now we're going to create another list. And we'll call it from our animal class. Call it animal list equals new list animal. This is times I do not like IntelliSense. So we'll do new animal. First thing is the name. We'll call him Walter. Dog. Yeah. He's a French bulldog. Its color is brindle. You can see IntelliSense is nice here because it is telling us the order we should be following it in. Gender, he's a male. age. Age is an integer, so we do not put any quotation marks or anything around it. And his owner is myself. So I'll do that for my next couple. Olivia. She's a dog. She's an English bulldog. She's white. Actually, she's 3 different colors. She's like a rare type of dog because of her colors, but female. She's also 3. She belongs to Crystal. Crystal Holton. Capital. So I'll do this one last line of animals here, and then go ahead and paste my last 2 in, and I'll get going with the actual coding. Mango, that's another dog. Chichuahua. Chihuahua. Brown. Male. Actually, I'm going to capitalize these just to make it look better. It displays. Male. 4 years old, and Mackenzie owns them. So my last 2, I'm just going to copy and paste them to save a few minutes of time here. So I got my list created. We're saying create a list, use the class customer. We're calling it customer list, new list customer, and as we see new, instantiate a new list. It's going to be a list of objects, customer, and we're going to store it in that customer list variable that we created. The new keyword here instantiates our object customer. We've got to put a parenthesis behind it. Technically, it works like a method, and then we put our data types in here. So when you create a list, create a new object in your list, and then you populate that object. You want to populate your object by following along with your constructor that you created. Like I said, usually you want to keep it in the same order that it's shown in your constructor. We'll see if that has an effect when we actually print mine and Crystal's information out and see if that throws any kind of weirdness to it. So now to actually get to the button, click search. We're going to get a string from our text boxes. So we'll do string owner first name equals our text box. Text first name dot text string owner last name dot text. And so I'm going to throw some alert messages kind of in here. So because once you set your text box or your 4-color in a text box, it keeps it that color. So every time I click on this search button, I'm going to switch my colors back to black. So I'm going to do a first name dot text, or no, I'm sorry, first name dot 4-color. There you go. Equals color. I don't want white, I want black, so it stays with our rest of our text. And I'm going to do the same thing for last name. That way, every time I click that button, I make sure if they don't put a name in, I'm going to make it turn red and say enter a name. And then I want it to switch black if it does find their name. I don't want it to stay red. So then we'll do something like this to check to see if they're entering a name in the box. So we'll do if owner first name I guess we could do not null, but we'll just keep it basic for the moment. Equals an empty string. And as I said to some of you, as I help you do these labs and that, I always like to take my text boxes, the value of those text boxes, and store them in a value. That way I can just use the variable name, I should say variable, not value. Store them in a variable name, then I can just always use them and call them later on as needed. So if it's empty, we're going to say text first, name for color is red. And then I'm just going to do a text first name dot text. I probably could just use owner's first name equals, but enter a first name. And I'm going to do an else if. So I want to check two conditions here. The first one I'm going to say, I guess I could have put if owner first name is blank or owner's last name is blank, but owner last name is equal to blank text. I'm just going to kind of copy and paste this line up here, save some time. And we'll just call it text last name, text last name. Give everybody a second to catch up on that. Then we want to do an else. And inside this else, we're going to start with a for loop to walk through our list that we created. So int I equals 0. And this will probably auto-populate for you. And we want customer list dot count. Remember, we'll use a count for. So I want I is less than customer list dot count I plus plus. And then inside here, it's kind of like what we're doing in all these labs when we search. We're going to do an if statement now. If customer list square bracket I index I and when we created this in the customer side over here, we did these get first name, get last name. These gets should actually be capital G since it's the beginning of a method. I'm going to fix that real quick. Can't believe none of you guys caught this as I was coding it out. That makes me worried. No, just kidding. You working on anything over there, Ryan?
Yeah. I'm just changing my song right now.
So we're gonna do customer list I get, and we're gonna get the first name that we have getting passed through. Dot. We're gonna make it to lower, just so we know that it can cover anything, and we'll do a contains. And we wanted owner's first name to lower, so IntelliSense helped us out there, even though it put one too many parentheses on it. So on this part here, we're saying go look through our customer list, get the index that we're looking for, depending on where our first name shows up. Goes and gets the first name method that we created in our class. Customer gets our first name. Whatever this first name is holding here from our parameter list, it's going to return to the screen by calling this get first name method. So that's what all that's doing there, is just getting that first name. Makes it lowercase, checks the contains of whatever we're putting in the text box matches it. We're going to do an and.
I'm getting an error.
Yeah, same.
You have a capital G or lowercase g? Forget.
I,
Oh, wait a minute.
I put that. I'm not getting it on the get. I'm getting it on the customer list.
On the customer list. All right. So, like I said, we add our search for our last name. We look for the customer list, the index. We get the last name now. The get last name goes back to our class. Get last name, and it returns the value of the last name passed in through our parameter for our customer object and our constructor. Make it to lower so they don't have to worry about typing in upper and lowercase to match, and then we just check to see what the text box value holds there. So if that's all good, then we can print out our data here. So we'll say text pet name dot text equals customer list I. There's one of the times IntelliSense doesn't really help us because we don't want the first name. We want to get pet name. And we'll keep doing that for text. Address.text equals customer list subindex. I don't know why I keep wanting to put one in there. Dot get address text phone number dot text equals customer list index of I dot get phone number
So in the class, ask it like this.
there. Finally, IntelliSense did something right and helped me out there. So text zip code dot text equals customer zip code, and then finally an email address text email dot text equals customer list square bracket so the next I dot get email, and it's not first email address, it's just email address. That's where IntelliSense becomes a pain in the butt at times. Get email address. Email address. Did I not return an email address? Oh, it does say get first. I don't want first over here. So get email address. Now it should be happy. Get email address. So now we're saying if we can find the first name and the last name, go ahead and print out our info to the screen. If not, I'm just going to copy and paste all this down here. So copy, I'll do an else statement and say if it's not found, we'll just say customer not found. I'm just going to copy and paste all this. Big time saver. Missing my quote on the back. So now we can run this and test it out, make sure our customer part is working. A lot easier to test it as you're coding it rather than doing everything then going back and checking. So let's run this. Got our form. I'll kind of keep it over here in case some people are still typing along. So we'll put in our first name and do a customer search, and it tells us I need to change my wording around up here. Enter a last name. So let's run it again. If I just put in my first name, enter a last name. If I enter a last name, and it should have changed my text back. I guess I needed it after the button. There it does. And it didn't find us for some reason. Customer account. Yep.
Are you on the front where you say like ask them that now? I think it's you're not using your other range of the animal list. After the range list, animal list. It might be the same.
Up here.
Yeah, animal list is not like it might basically say it's not being used.
Well, I'm not using animal list yet because we haven't started coding for it.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder if because I have my my constructor out of order, if that breaks it. So let me try one that I know I coded right. Nope, still not finding it. So I did something wrong in my code. So owner's first name is that. Do that. Do that else. Contains owner first name to and customer list I. Get last name to lower. Contains owner's last name to lower. Press it out. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Let me put a break in here and see if that fixes it. There we go. I guess technically, if I don't have a first or last name and click customer search, I should clear all these text boxes out, but so let's try. Still not fine. Oh, I put the wrong last name in. Duh. There we go. So that should have our search working. We just didn't have our break down there or return to get it to break out of the loop once we finish it.
Is there a way to make the text box red instead of the text?
I think it's like back color or background color maybe.
Mr. G, I'm having a problem.
Yes, so we'll go ahead and do the pet search part of it now. So I'll go to my form design. I'll double click on my pet search to get my button wired up for my click event. So this one's going to be a little bit easier. We're going to do a string, pet name, search equals text search pet dot text, and then we're going to do a for loop again to get loop through our list of animals. So I'll do an int I. And again, here's our IntelliSense. It's kind of nice. We want to use that. Our animal list is what we actually want, but we want I is less than animal list. That count. And then we're going to do an if statement again here. And say if animals or animal list, is that what I call it? Animal list up here. Animal list. I dot name to lower contains pet name search to lower. And then we're just going to do txt owner name. That text equals animal list I owner. And notice on this one, we set up our properties to just hold the capital name, capital type. We're not doing the method where we do a get. We're just doing the property itself. So now when we do this, we don't have to use the the get like we did here, get pet name, get address. We're just using the .owner. So to me, I like it this way a little bit better just because it's shorter, but that get and set, if you do a get first name and return the first name, you can do a set first name and set the first name. So it's a little bit easier to understand if you do it this way. But to me, this way ends up being a little bit more clean just by doing .name, .type, .breed instead of get blah 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 kind of a thing. So text, what's our next field we need to get? Apparently putting the things in odd. I'll have to go back and double check one more time to see if it's printing them out right. So we want text type dot text equals animal list type, text breed dot text equals animal breed, text gender dot text equals gender, text age dot text, and because age is coming in as a text, we want to display it as a string. We have to do animal list I dot age dot toString. I don't know why I changed my age lowercase. My age lowercase over here for some reason. Yep. Age. Now it should be happy. Put our break in. And then we can do our else. If it's not found. Yep.
Is there a way you can like format your document? Like say like things are like kind of like.
Yeah, there's a way. I think you do like a line left or something like that. I'd have to double check on it.
I know that has nothing to do with that, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's all right. So if you highlight them, I think. There's a way somewhere in here. I'd have to look. So now if we run this, I guess I need to put the red in there and say pet not found or enter. I guess he wouldn't do a search without entering, so we don't really have to worry about that. So let's type in a pet name, Livia. My color didn't show up. And I didn't put it in here, no wonder. There we go. So now we'll rerun it. My colors should populate. Pet name, Livia. Pet search. And if we wanted to, we could go back change all these to read only somewhere. So change them to read only, and then they're grayed out, and it shows we can't do anything with them yet. So now if we run this, Mango, it still populates, you just can't change any of the text in them. Since we changed it read only, when you do an update, you can click on it and update the one you want to update. We'll work on that tomorrow. I don't want to eat up all your lab time since I ate up a lot of it already. So that's it for that. Anybody having any issues or questions? Yep. To the So I'll go ahead and save this and I'll put it out on YouTube so you can use it as a reference. Tomorrow we'll take a look at the update and we'll do a delete even just for a little more practice on it. That way you're ready and